Welcome to Phae's Place, where dreamers have the liberty to dream. I'm your host, Phaedra, and I'm so excited that we have this time to dream together. Growing up as an only child, my best friend has always been my imagination. I had this playroom with a bunch of toys, and when I entered it, I could be whatever I wanted to be. And majority of the time, I was a performer entertaining a large sold-out audience. And the people loved me, and I loved the people. Well, of course, darling, I was on tour. And then when I wasn't doing that, I was playing with my Barbie dolls. Listen, everyone had a name. I renamed the Barbie dolls, child. And I did their hair. They gave them all background stories. I used to take my dad's old socks and create dresses for them. Sometimes I would sew them by hand. And then when I got my little sewing machine, I would make the dresses on the sewing machine. But when I wasn't doing that, my other favorite toy was this thank you for banking with Barbie. Because after a sold out tour, you had to bank your money. See, I knew that even back then. Okay, of course, that comes right after you give your 10%. But it was this Barbie banking cashier. And I love this toy to this day. And while I'm reflecting on things of old, it always seems like life was easier before your frontal lobe develops. You know what I'm saying? And nobody really talks about that. What happens when your frontal lobe develops? Because the places you used to go, you just don't go no more. The things you used to think, you just don't think no more. And it's crazy. And it really has you jump scared because it's like, oh, I used to think my favorite color was so-and-so, but I think that's not true anymore. And now what really is my favorite color? And so you go on this whole journey of who am I and what do I really love? And that question is so relevant to the topic that we're talking about today, which is, are Black women encouraged to dream? And of course, I know you're going to be like, well, of course they are, but are they? Are they though? I mean, take a look around. Once that frontal lobe develops, reality sets in, and I don't even want to say reality, society sets in. And when you're young, you really don't care about what people say, what they don't say. But when you get older and once that frontal lobe develops, you're like, okay, I have to pay attention to what society says because I want to be, a considerate citizen and yada, yada, yada. Now, my hot take is that kids know their purpose and they know what they really want to do with their life. It's just that they don't always have the vocabulary, they don't have the life experience to verbalize everything that they really feel in their hearts. And you know what I'm talking about, because have you ever asked a child what you want to be when you grow up and they be like, I want to be a butterfly. And you just smile and you laugh it off. Or sometimes people will be like, oh, you can't be no butterfly. That's an animal. You're not an animal. But the truth is, maybe they really like flying. And as they grow and they get older, they realize, oh, I could be a pilot. Or maybe an airline stewardess, or an engineer to develop a drone, or the inventor of the first flying car, an astronaut. I mean, the possibilities are endless because they love the idea of flying. And what I've discovered, some people in life really believe that they are called to humble people. And let me just tell you right now, that is not what the Lord has called you to do. He will do the humbling. People, once they do their research and they go through life, they'll realize what they can and cannot do. You don't have to humble them. If their task and their dreams and what they speak of is not really destroying or causing danger to themselves or the people around them, then encourage them. When women decide to share their dreams and goals, even in 2025, and it's not centered around being a homemaker, a wife, and a mother, people kind of frown their face upon that. And they want to humble their dreams, right? It's like, yeah, you can dream, but then if you decide to go after it, it's looked at as too ambitious. I think the perfect example of this is Bertha Russell in The Gilded Age. No judgment, but if you're not watching The Gilded Age, then what are you doing? But I would not have you to be ignorant, brother and sister. And so if you don't know what The Gilded Age is a show that's on HBO, and it follows the upper class of those who were here, of course, during the Gilded Age. It's set in New York, and Bertha Russell is based on Alva Vanderbilt, who is the wife of railroad tycoon William Kissam Vanderbilt, and portrayed by the wonderful Carrie Coon. Now, the thing is, Bertha Russell and her husband represent new money. Now, old money don't like new money. Now, new money done moved in and they done moved on up in the big leagues like the Jeffersons. And now the old money is like, you coming all in here prancing around and our family been here for years, darling. But do you think Bertha Russell cares? If you say no, then you are absolutely correct. And people are uncomfortable with her in the world of the show, but also probably looking at her because she is so unapologetic. She knows what she wants and she goes after it. And I think women do that. They know what they want, they go after it, but the way that they're expected to go after it is very like docile and very calm, and it needs to center around just the family. Now, the flack that she gets, not only from those who view her by watching the show, but in the actual world, is that they say that she's only self-seeking, but I don't see it that way. I think that she wants the best for her family, and that involves the storyline with getting her daughter to marry the Duke. And there was a scene where the daughter goes to the father crying tears, talking about, oh, you're making her let me marry this man and I don't even love him. And so the father goes and approaches Bertha and says, are you going to let me have a say in my daughter's life? And she turns around and says, you'll get a say when I get a say in your business. And I said, that's big Bertha, not the small one. And what a wonderful line that puts commentary on women's plight throughout generations. Because you see, he's a businessman, so he's expected to be shrewd. He's expected to be ambitious, right? He can be cutthroat, and it's praised, and it's like, oh, he's the breadwinner of the family. But when the tables are turned and the woman shows ambition, and the woman says, I have a goal, and I want things to be operated this way, now you're looking at her like, oh, she's a little too arrogant. She's up on her high horse. She needs to come down. And going back to the Gilded Age time period where women really couldn't be out in the forefront like men. And if the railroad was George Russell, her husband's business, and women's business was quote unquote in the house, then George let her cook. Like Will taught Ashley in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, just mind your business. Just mind your business, George. And George knows that Bertha is smart, which is why he married her. He knows and understands what she brings to the marriage, what she brings to the table, because he even goes back and begs her and asks her to help him. And it reminds me of the Beyonce lyrics from Upgrade You when she says, when you're in the big meetings for the mills, you take me just to compliment the deal. That right there is a theme line for Bertha and George Russell. It's difficult for wealthy white women. We don't even have to imagine how it is for black women, whether they're wealthy or not. I think a good example of this is looking at the women who ran for president in America. We had black and white women. And both times, people probably thought they were just a little too ambitious. Like a president. Aren't you happy just being a vice president? Aren't you just happy being a secretary? Aren't you just happy just to be a politician? Men are encouraged to move up in their career goals. Women, when they move up, is it always celebrated? So during my daily scroll of Instagram, I came across a post that said, are black women allowed to change? And they went a little further, asking their audience, hey, what kind of change have you made, even if nobody else understood it? And so I hopped over to the comment section, and one woman said she was called white for pursuing her dreams. And immediately it's like, well, what does race have to do with pursuing your dreams? But Langston Hughes talks about this idea in his poem Harlem when he poses an important question. What happens to a dream deferred? Now, if you're anything like me, you know about this poem because of A Raisin in the Sun. Also shouting out The Gilded Age because Felicia Rashad and Audra McDonald are in The Gilded Age just like they are in A Raisin in the Sun, and that's the version of A Raisin in the Sun that I'm more familiar with. Langston Hughes is an American poet who comes from an African-American background. Harlem is the epicenter of Black culture, and wonderful things are birthed through Harlem and are in Harlem. But you cannot talk about Harlem without talking about the society of how Blacks have been stifled historically in America. And it's one thing to be physically stifled, but to be physically and mentally and emotionally stifled, that's a lot of burdens. You know what I mean? So on one hand, you have this promise of you can be anything that you want to be, but it's like, not without going through some stuff. Let's just put it like that. What I love about this poem is that it gives you an imagery just how important dreams are. Dreams give you something to look forward to, gives you a reason to live. It's hope that keeps you going. And so for someone to take that away, it's really an effort to deny someone of their humanity. Lorraine Hansberry does a fantastic job of making a commentary with this in her play, A Raisin in the Sun, when Lena Younger, played by Felicia Rashad, talks about her husband, Big Walter, and says, Big Walter used to say, it seems like God didn't give us anything but dreams, but he gave us children to make those dreams seem worthwhile. So as you can see, historically speaking, hope and dreaming is how people pressed forward. And we don't even have to look that far back. Modern history also talks about this when Barack Obama came out with his book, The Audacity of Hope. Now, when this came out, I was really young. I didn't understand it, but a couple of years after my frontal lobe has fully developed, I am understanding things deeper. But yes, as an adult, to say that I still have dreams and desires and goals and I'm going to go after that, that takes audacity. And when you tell people your dreams, especially when you reach a certain age, they look at you kind of funny because it's like, are you really going to do that? And for you to tell them, yes, I am, that is an act of resistance. When I was younger, people used to ask me, Phaedra, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always said a pediatrician, obstetrician, forensic scientist. And I said it in one breath because that was the thing, a pediatrician, obstetrician, forensic scientist. Like that was my thing. I wanted to do that. That was the whole job. And I didn't get too much flack about it. The people really supported it until one day someone didn't. And they challenged that idea and was like, Phaedra, that's a lot. You can't do all of that at one time. And I was so taken aback. I was like, huh? But in the same vein, their mom said, yes, Phaedra, you can do that if that's what you want to do. And that was so comforting. And I love the fact that she saw the wisdom in consoling and encouraging a Black girl's dream. However, because of that encounter, the next time someone asked me what I wanted to be, I was not enthusiastic about it. I was, I prefaced it with, well, I know it's a lot. And I know I can't do it all at one time, but I would like to be pediatrician, obstetrician, forensic scientist, maybe all of them, maybe one of them at different times, And so now it's like something that I was so excited about. I'm prefacing it with, I know that I can't do that. Now this dream is out of reach. But the gag is, like Keke Palmer said, the gag is I never really disclosed what my true dream was to people. It always was something inside of me. And even at a young age, unconsciously, I understood that you can have a dream, you can do this certain thing, but that was just on the side. But to make money, you had to do something else, right? You had to be a doctor. You had to be a forensic scientist. You had to be a lawyer. Like there was something that made you money, and then there was something that you enjoyed. It really wasn't that you can enjoy what you do. But looking back, telling people that I wanted to be a pediatrician, forensic scientist, an obstetrician, I think it was smart on my part not disclosing my true dream, because I'm like, if I disclosed what I'm telling you is my dream and you are just telling me I can't do that, what would that have done if I told people what I really wanted to do? So in some way, I think that it was protection, and I was able to, It was like a test. It was like, oh, I could tell them this is what I wanted to do, see their reaction. And whatever their reaction is, it wouldn't really bother me because this dream that I really have is protected. And fast forward when I'm talking to Michelle Obama and she tells me to dream big dreams. Child, ever since she told me that, I've been dreaming huge dreams. I mean, they are gigantic, ginormous, okay? But that piece of advice always stood out to me because I was so young when she told me that. I was 10 years old. But that's advice that you give young people that anchors them, and even though they don't really understand it at the time, they can draw back and say, oh, this is what they mean. And from one revolutionary to another, telling a black woman telling a black girl to dream and to dream big, and don't dream inside of a box, dream outside the box, is the best way to cultivate this good trouble that John Lewis talks about. And to cultivate, this is how we resist. This is a good way to resist. And that's the type of advice that I share with other black girls and other black women. I remember helping backstage for a recital, and I was trying to entertain the 2 to 3 year olds before they went on stage, and I asked them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they were rattling off all these answers. I got to this one little girl and she said, I want to be a baby's mama. And she knew she was being funny because she did her little smirk at the end, and I was so taken aback. I couldn't help but to just chuckle. And of course, after that, all the kids were like, I want to be baby's mama. I want to be baby's mama. I want to be baby's mama. But let me tell you, I have been the recipient of people encouraging my dreams. And I told her, I said, well, you be the best baby's mama you can be. And even to this day, when I talk to my mentees, I'm always asking, what are their dreams? How are they living out their dreams? What are their goals to achieve their dreams? Because I believe that God gives you dreams, and you must be a good steward of the dreams that he has given you. So are black women encouraged to dream? I don't know if society encourages them to dream, but I encourage them to dream. I'm encouraged to dream. And I hope you are too. Dreaming is an act of resistance. Resistance is never easy, but it makes it so much better when it's done in community. And that's the point of Phae's Place. It's where dreamers can come and have the freedom to dream. So if you have hidden your dreams, it's time to go revisit them. The best part is that you don't have to dream alone. We can dream together. I love you all for listening.